Two speakers we have today, like I said, are Tangee Mobley and Dottie Watkins. Tangee, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, but please correct me if I'm wrong. So Tangi is the Vice President of Bus Operations and Maintenance. She's been in the transit industry for over 35 years, worked in a lot of different places, Washington, D.C., Houston. She first started as a bus driver and fell in love with transit because she said she could just see the impact that she was making daily and the importance of the job she was doing. And so, now she's with Cat Metro, Vice President of Bus Operations and Maintenance. Dottie Watkins is the Chief Customer Officer and Chief Operating Officer with Capital Metro. She also has been in the transit industry for a while. She began her career in 1994, also as a bus driver, driving part-time while attending UT. And now in her role, she leads the team responsible for bus, paratransit, rail, and van pool services, as well as the IT, capital construction, and public facilities and security functions of Capital Metro. So I'm super excited to hear from both of these women today to kind of tell their stories and give some advice. And I will just go ahead and hand it over to either Joanne or whichever one of our ladies who's speaking first.
I think it'd be great to start with Tangi and then work our way up to Miss Dottie. And I'll let you ladies just take it from here.
Sounds like a plan. Good afternoon, everybody. Hi. As Teal said, I'm Tangee Mobley. I've been in transit for over 35 years. Started as a bus operator and kind of fell into transit. I fell in love with it because it's not too many jobs you can do where you find out what you do on a daily basis impacts and so impactful for other people's lives. So I love helping people and I love interacting with people. So I kind of like fell into it. And, no one thinks about growing up to be a bus driver. So, transit has a lot to offer. People only think about bus drivers and mechanics. And we have so much more to offer here as careers because we have so many different departments. As they read Dottie's bio, there's security, there's facilities, there's construction, there's so much stuff. But anyway, about me, I started as a bus driver, got into the street supervisors, which is the folks who go around and check out service, and moved through the ranks from a street supervisor to working in the office as an office manager, then a superintendent of a division. And then it elevated to I was over 5 or 6 divisions. And before I left WMATA, which is Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority in DC. I'm a Washingtonian, is where I grew up. And before I left there, I was there from almost 25, 27 years. So when I left there, I was overseeing 10 garages and all under the bus transportation umbrella. And from my experience there, that was one of where I got my major foundation in transportation. And what I can tell ladies is that don't give up. I worked hard. I was consistent in what I did, and I didn't let it kind of deter me because, transit is a man's world, and it's not that many women in it. And especially as we elevate, it's becoming a little more prevalent. But truly, when I first started driving a bus, there's only a handful of women driving buses. And so I had a good mentor that able to help develop me and gave me some classes on experiences that women experience in the workplace, which is a major deal. And I would encourage you to get a mentor to help you. You can bounce stuff off folks. And then I'll give you a little anecdote of what happened to me when I was in, in operations. I had a superintendent that was my supervisor, and we were doing a performance evaluation. And he said, and he gave me just pretty much average. And I sat down and asked him, I said, okay, so tell me, what do I need to do to move to the next level? And he said, Tan, just nothing you can do. And I said, okay, all jokes aside, really, what do I need to do to move to the next level? And he said, no, it's nothing you can do. And so I'm telling you, ladies, that threw down the gauntlet. I said, I'm going to get this. And I work hard, work long hours, be consistent. You know, folks complain about people give you other tasks to do, but with other tasks, you get knowledge. And with knowledge, you become invaluable. So I took it and ran. And long story short, I became his supervisor. So yay for the team. So I love transit. I don't be afraid to move. After I've been in transit for so long at WMATA, I got an opportunity to go to Houston, Texas as a senior director of transportation. And I took the opportunity. I was very nervous. My kids were going to high school. My husband was, he was getting ready to retire, but he wasn't ready yet. But that kind of pushed him into it, which was the best thing because my kids were home to a new environment in high school. So it worked out well. So since then, I was in Houston, then I went to Orlando, manager of bus operations, paratransit facilities. And I came to Charlotte, general manager of bus operations and paratransit and facilities. And now I'm here in lovely Austin, Texas. So it's all I can tell you, ladies. I think part of my journey has been divine intervention, and that's real. Because things that I would have never thought that I would be doing, that I'm doing, and I would never have thought of it that I would make it to where I am. So I'm very grateful for my journey, and I've met so many great people along the way, and just as my lights goes off, just enjoy what you do. I love what I do, so I don't really work, because I enjoy what I do every day, and just be confident and be persistent. Be persistent in what you know and what you do, and it'll pay off. It absolutely will. So that's my story. So thank you. And got any questions?
Yeah, one of the things that I love about Tangi, as you can tell, one is her energy, and I was so happy that she said yes, she was available to do this with y'all. When we were chatting last week, one of the things I asked was, actually, I'm going to let Mia ask because she may have a similar question. Go ahead, Mia.
Oh.
Miss Mia, if you want to unmute, go right ahead and ask your question.
I was typing it, but
oh yeah, no, go ahead.
Might as well just unmute, right?
Yeah.
I loved how Tangi said that she just gained a lot of knowledge wherever she could, and I think that's awesome. And I think as women, we also forget like how to share that we have this knowledge, or we feel like we're bragging on ourselves, or maybe it's not the right time. Can you give us some ideas on how you were able to share the knowledge that you had, so that people would notice?
Yes. One thing I used to do, I used to like pluck operators out of the ranks that were interested in doing stuff. And I said, come on, let me show you how to do this. And I got a little mini team of folks who were interested in moving up and doing other things that I taught them how to do different stuff in the office. And they, one of the ladies that I helped mentor when I was a superintendent, she ended up as a general superintendent at WMATA over the 10 garages. So she kind of like followed the path. So it's very rewarding to see that, you give people, you help people. I'm not nervous about sharing any information that I have, because your knowledge is your knowledge. No one can take it from you, and your experience is your experience. And I think we should share as much as we can. I mentor people still who from different places where I've worked and still call me and bounce stuff off of me and say, how can we do this and how can we do that? And what do you think about that? So, it's no judgment. It's no judgment zone. So I enjoy it. And it's just, it's almost like my babies have grown up and I can see my babies being successful. And I just absolutely love it. It's a joy. So I don't know if I answered your question correctly, but
you did. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I truly love it. I love it. And I'm a chatty Kathy, so I'm going to calm it down a little bit.
Oh, like I said, I love your energy. Miss Gill has a question. How did you find these people and how did they find you?
They kind of found me, as in the different places where I worked, or the people in the workplace. Well, see, I'm a chatty, and I'll talk to people, and I learned early on that when you talk with people, you have to be present. You can't be looking at your phone. You can't be looking up. And I really just, when someone's talking to me, I'm not doing anything else. I'm doing something. Wait a minute, let me finish what I'm doing so I can pay attention. And I think it shows when you pay attention, so you're authentic. And people, and I learned so much about different people. A lady I work with now, she has 7 cats. I would have never known that. I chatted with her for about 20 minutes. And so it gives you a more personal touch, and you got to learn your people anyway that you work with, because everybody's different. And what may push Jones buttons to make them happy and enjoy what they do may not help Joe. So, what we do is relationship building, and everything we do, build relationships. And I love doing it because I love talking to folks, and I'm a chatty. My kids always kid me that I talk to people in the grocery store. I'm like, okay, have you tried that before? Is that any good? And so that's who I am. So I enjoy it.
And I agree, Ms. Gill, that it is definitely the gem of the day. Be present, because you can do it at any level. I think that's the best piece of that advice is you can do it at absolutely any level. Miss Linda Jackson asks, how did you show the people below you that, below you that you had these, so how do you show them that you have these abilities? How do you show them that you're as, I want to say intelligent, because I think sometimes as women, they don't see us that way, but how do you show them you have the skills and the ability to do what you can do?
It's your voice, between your voice and your product that you produce. My thing is that I don't give shoddy work. I don't like, I'm kind of like a stickler about when I do memos. I like straight margins. It's just picky. That's who I am. Mm-hmm. But with your consistency in your work, consistency in your product and your voice, and don't let folks take your voice. I've worked at places where it's not the message that you're giving, it's the messenger. So you have to rise, because that's everywhere, and you have to rise above it, because they think, well, I could say the same thing. This guy next door said the same. I was like, oh my God, I said the same. I just said that. And so use your voice, because it takes time for people to acknowledge it. But once it's there and it's genuine, and you're a professional in what you do, and it's evident that you're knowledgeable what you're speaking of and your field. So it takes time, and some are more open than others, but you just got to keep at it. You just can't give up, and just to be positive, you just got to keep doing it.
That persistency that you mentioned earlier, I love that.
Yeah.
Do we have any other questions that we want to ask Ms. Tangi? And we'll have another opportunity after as well, but we definitely want to. Okay, Miss Donna, how do you stay positive? Oh, for Tangi, how do you stay positive? And any tricks to overcoming hard situations?
Any tricks to come over hard situations? Well, each situation is different, depending on. I would say try to stay grounded and don't get too emotional. When you get very emotional, you lose your strategic thinking process to get through stuff. So I would think, just trying to, don't take it to the personal level and try to think through it. You can take it to personal once you get home, but think about it so that, you're making the right move, and that it will help you on, and in your whatever your outcome you're looking for. Just be strategic and don't take it too personal, because if you take everything personal, you will really they'll torpedo you. So, and when people get personal, no problem. I'm just saying, don't take stuff personal, and try to stay on a professional level and work through it, and that will help get you. You don't want to go down the rabbit hole and get personal, and then you'll derail your goals and what you want to do, your objectives. So just keep it professional. And you can take the personal stuff to your husband or your spouse or your friend or whoever to speak it, to work it out on the other end, but don't do it at the workplace.
And Ms. Shayna, apologize if I mispronounced your name. How do we prevent our ideas from being stolen? I want to share them and be noticed. Over the years, though, things have gotten stolen. And this is in school and the professional setting. And I've had that too. I mean, I think it's something that happens to us women a lot.
I think you're absolutely correct, because that's the same thing about it's not the message, it's the messenger, and they steal your stuff. I don't have a clear answer for that, other than, if you have something in documentation, well, yeah, I did this 2 months ago. Here you go. But if you don't have that, it's hard, because when you're in rooms and you're talking about stuff and people are like, well, that's my, no, it's not. That's not your idea. But you can't have a cat fight on in a big meeting, but it's hard. So I haven't really mastered that. Maybe Dottie has better luck than me, but it's it's a challenge for sure.
I did get one piece of advice from one of my mentors in the past. She said, Joanne, if you have a really, really great idea, stand up like if you're about to stretch and just keep talking, and you have the room's attention. And it makes it a lot more difficult for somebody else to say they had the idea when they're all looking at you. I was like, holy moly, I love that. I've only used it once and it didn't work, but it was one of the best pieces of advice I got on that one.
Oh, yes, that is great advice. Thank you for sharing.
Start with the arms and then just put them down casually. Well, since I'm up.
Excellent, excellent.
All right. So now we have a little slowdown in questions. Let's go ahead and hear from Miss Dottie. We want to hear your story.
All right. Good. Is it morning? It's still barely morning, so I'll say good morning. I had to check the time. I'm Dottie Watkins. I'm the Chief Customer Officer and Chief Operating Officer for Capital Metro. And much like my friend Tangi, I started in this industry as a bus operator. I was never going to have a career in transit. That was not the plan. And many, many years later, I am still here. I was going to do this as a part-time job while I was in school, and then I was going to go save the world. But I kind of fell in love with it too. Really, I fell in love with it as a way to save the world, sadly. It was an opportunity to help people and to also kind of solve problems. And I think part of what I've always loved about public transit is that it is a people business. We are about moving people, and we do that through people. There's very little that we do that's not very people based. And so that really spoke to my kind of, help the world be a better place by being a good person in it, sort of go focus in life. But there's also a lot of problems to solve. I love solving puzzles. And so I just, try and look at a new challenge at work as a new puzzle to solve. And so it's like opening up a new crossword puzzle. I'm going to plug in this one that I know, and I'm going to use that to help me figure out the next one. And then if I can't figure that one out, so let me skip over here and see if I can work my way back to over there. And so it just is something where it's constantly changing and very exciting that way. I definitely have been very fortunate over my career to be kind of not exactly just in the right place at the right time, but to have been performing well in the right place at the right time. So I echo what Tangi said about just always working hard and never turning down a chance to do something outside of your kind of your vision for what you thought your career was going to be. I mean, when I first started in this industry, this wasn't going to be my career. I actually moved from operating to training. And my first full-time job out of school was training bus operators. And I really loved that because just the ability to sort of, find somebody and help them find a new career was really great. And then I get this sort of weird turn of events where our division desperately needed basically an office manager. The administrative and special projects manager was my title, which I liked to joke that I was the manager of other duties as assigned. I did whatever our general manager told me to do. But in that process, I like learned so much about like actually what it took to run the business. And I learned how to do payroll, and I learned how to do accounts payable. And there was just so much that was beyond what I thought my career path was going to need that was very helpful. And so I think because I was open to saying, well, sure, yeah, I can figure that out. What do you want? What do you want me to figure out? What do you want me to know? What do you want me to learn? And just always said, yeah, I can do that. Sure. Oh, I haven't done it before, but I can. I'm sure I can. Let's go do it. And so really just trying to take that on. I was fortunate. There were a couple of folks, I think, along the way that were very supportive of me. The very first one was my father. So I'm actually a second generation Capital Metro employee. My dad worked at Capital Metro before I did. And he's actually the one that encouraged me to apply for the job when I was a student. But he very early on told me that I made the comment about how useful it was going to be to graduate with a commercial driver's license, and like that would be that I would have that like skill and marketable. Like I knew I'd be able to pay the bills, right? I was young and I was really worried about paying the bills. I was studying social work, so paying the bills was going to be a concern. Social workers do not get paid enough in this country. And so he just looked at me and he said, girl, by the time you graduate from college, you're going to be running the place. And I was like, oh, whatever. But that just stuck with me. And I just knew always that I had people who believed in me. And so I always really tried to channel that. Even in those moments when I was insecure, and Lord knows I still to this day have those moments where I'm like, oh my God, do I know what I'm doing? Is that I stopped and remember that I have people that I love and adore and trust and respect who believe in me. And so making sure that you find those people. I also have had a couple of supervisors along the way that have just been really supportive. And I think one of my favorite was a manager, actually the same manager that gave me that opportunity to do administrative stuff, was also a huge proponent of education. And so he actually encouraged me to go back to school. And I went back to school while I was working and got an MBA. And I think that getting a business degree really helped me on top of having a social work degree to show the world that no, I can do more than this. And so, but really what I think he really helped me know from an early age was the importance of never stopping learning. I forget who it was that said, I'm 63, it's probably too late for me to learn that. No, it's never too late to learn something. It's never too late to get a new skill. Something comes up, that you think is interesting or something you need to know, to just tackle it and learn it. And, especially in this day and age, there's so many resources available. It's a lot easier to kind of get access to an online training. And, when I first started, I figured out pretty early that I could make my life easier if I figured out how Excel worked. And it took me a while, and I did a ton of digging. I'd be like, there's got to be a way to make this program do this thing that I'm doing the hard way, the easy way. And so I learned how to do, crazy things like pivot tables and macros and all sorts of weird stuff, because I wanted the computer to do the work for me. And just being willing to say, there's got to be a better way, and I'm going to work on that. So I will counter a little bit and offer you a slightly different answer than Tangee. And it's interesting because she's been in this business a little longer than I have, and has probably come up against the glass ceiling in harder ways. I think WMATA was probably a rougher and tougher place from a boys club culture than Austin, Texas. I grew up in Austin and have spent my whole career here. I would say, don't apologize for being emotional about your work. It's something that I think as women, we're often told not that don't be upset by that, because it shows that you're weak. And I actually, when I encounter a woman who is in that moment, and it often comes from frustration or just really feeling upset because of a mistake they made or a thing that went wrong, I remind them that the reason you're emotional is because you really care. And the fact that you really care is an important thing. So that doesn't mean that it's okay to go to work every day and cry all day, but you don't have to apologize for like for being weak or even think of it that way. I always encourage people, when you're feeling emotional and you're having that moment, to take a deep breath and remember that that's because you really care, and the fact that you really care is a good thing. So doing that for me helps me take that breath and take that pause, so then go, okay, it's usually not about you. Even when you're the one that made the mistake, it's not about you as a human, right? It's not about you and your worth. It's about the work. And so just taking a deep breath and saying, these emotions are just a reminder to me that I care and that there's something that is important to me, but I'm going to take a deep breath and try and address it. So I think that was actually something in my career once, when I was having a horrible meeting, that one of my supervisors, who was a great mentor, he could hear that the meeting was going awful. He had his admin come in and say that there was a very important phone call I needed to take. Could I please step out for a minute? And then I stepped out, and she was like, go in there. He wants to talk to you on the phone so that you can look like you're actually on the phone. He said, I heard you in that meeting. What is going on? And I lost it. And I started crying, and I was just a mess. And he said, don't be upset because you're emotional. You're emotional because you care. And basically said, now take a deep breath and go back in there and give them hell, right? Like that was what we needed to do. But I needed to hear that in that moment. And I've been fortunate that I've had other opportunities working with other women who I've been able to say, it's okay. It's okay to feel that way. But let's take a deep breath and go in there and give them hell. So that's me. I never would have thought 26 years ago that I would have ended up as the chief operating officer. Probably about 15 years ago, I set my sights on this job. I said, one day I'd like to do that. And it has just been like the greatest thing ever that I have been able to just kind of stick around. And I love Capital Metro. I love what I do. And I would say, if you find a place where you really love the people, where you really love the work, don't be afraid to take a meandering path through that organization or that industry, because I think sometimes it's those meanders that give you the experience that you don't even know you're going to need down the road, and help show everybody that you do know what you're doing and that you're somebody that's great to work with. So I'll stop rambling there and
Yeah, that was awesome. And it's so you too. One of the great things that happened to me when I started Cap Metro almost years ago is one of the early folks that I got to know is Dottie. And to be able to make to feel like I am one of the group. I was a little taken aback. I came from the state and I was a manager director who felt that regardless of your level in other departments, if you're under her, you are under her, and you're not allowed to talk to anybody above her. And it was a little jarring to be in that environment, to come to Cap Metro and have somebody like Dottie and some of our other leaders that were so open and wonderful and allowed us to be who we are. Linda had some wonderful questions to start, so let me get going on hers first. How do you keep others from feeling insecure about your accomplishment? And I want to tag this with Ms. Gill's comment, because I agree. You can't make others feel one way or the other, and it's also not your responsibility to take care of someone else's feelings. But as a leader, it's one of those questions that we do come across, because you also don't want those that you're trying to bring up to feel like, oh, she's so good, I'll never measure up to that either. So is there a balance? Is there something that you do that kind of helps to help that feeling from others feeling that insecurity?
I would say that maybe one of and this is maybe even a bigger answer than even the question is to remember that, like, everybody that you're dealing with, no matter their level, is a human being, right? We all started as babies, and our mothers held us and kissed our foreheads, and we all have grown up to be, in our roles, but that we're all people, and that we're all people first, and we're all people with families and lives and friends first, and then we play this role in this organization. And so if you can connect with people as the people that they are, then that can help smooth out some of those insecurities or fears of talking to you, and also makes them feel a little yuckier if they steal your ideas, or like it's just a person, like being a person that people like. I mean, you can't love everybody, and you don't have to like everybody you work with, but you got to figure out how to work with them all. And so, but really trying to interact with people and seeing them as people and understanding them as people first, and people who have a role to perform in the organization second, I think really kind of helps you get around some of that. And I do think that it's one of the skills that naturally most women are more comfortable with, is being nurturing, is building those relationships and not feeling the need to be so hard driven. And it's something that there's tons of studies about emotional intelligence, and some of those aspects that make good leaders are the things that for years and years and years people were saying, well, don't be that way, don't be too much like a woman, right? Like, go be like a man. And I'm very much of the opinion that you need to be like you, and you need to be the best version of you, and that's what's going to get you where you want to go and where you need to be. If a role or an opportunity or a place needs you to be something that's not who you are, then it's not the right place for you. And have enough faith and belief in yourself to know that.
See, that's exactly what I'm talking about, Dottie. You're so comforting and amazing, and yep, I expect nothing less. She has an additional question. Miss Linda asks, and how do you deal with people who gaslight essential information to keep themselves important?
I think sometimes you have to go just like through the front door with stuff like that. And that's hard to do, especially when if there's a power imbalance between you and that person. But sometimes you just have to say straight up, like, you know, that was like, to the question earlier about stealing the ideas. Like, I shared that idea in the meeting last week. So I've had not, and you don't even have to like be confrontational about it. Somebody brings up the thing that you said, exactly, I said that thing last week. You can say, yeah, when we were meeting last week, I said a very similar thing, and I've had a chance to think about it since then. And I think also, and you can add on to it and basically kind of steal it back a little bit. And I think when people are, sometimes when people are gaslighting you and they're trying to tell you how it is, you just kind of have to let them get it out. And then you have to say, okay, I'd like to offer a different way to look at that, and just kind of go through the front door. I think the way you're explaining it isn't actually what my experience has been. And if you can frame it in a way that's not about I'm right and you're wrong, it's about my experience has been X, Y, or Z. They can't tell you what your experience has been. They can try and tell you how the world works, but if that's not how you've seen the world work, then if you can frame it in a way that's not about no, it doesn't work like that, it works like this. If you say, no, my experience has been, then you've put it in a place where they kind of can't touch it. And at least that opens up the conversation for everyone else in the room. When you're more in a one-on-one situation like that, if you're in a position where somebody's gonna be like that and like be overbearing and really trying to keep your truth from being a truth, then I would say maybe that's not a good place to be. And it's not always an option to just say, well, this isn't a good place for me to be, I'm going to go right now. But it might be a red flag that it's time to start figuring out how to maneuver yourself away from that person. Some people are just toxic, and there is no getting around it. There are people out there in the world who are just not good people. And some people who think they're good people and think they're doing good in the world, and really just have these personality moments that are just make them really hard to work with. And if you can figure out a way around those, and then maybe you can help you and them get through that. But if it just becomes a roadblock, then it can be tough. And so I think it's a little easier to call that stuff out in a larger group setting, because there are witnesses, right? There are witnesses to the conversation. And if you can stay calm and practical and keep it where it needs to be, then that other person starts to look a little bit like the tyrant. But it's definitely harder when it's a smaller group or there's a huge power imbalance and other people don't feel like they can stand up to that person. So there are definitely times when that's really tough, for sure.
Absolutely. How do you deal with applying for a job that you want but may not be qualified for it?
I think that, there's two levels of may not be qualified for, right? So, some qualifications are kind of the requirements, but often it is organizations are looking for somebody who has a set of skills and the ability to approach something. And so if you can look at the job and you can talk about how you would accomplish something, you're probably more qualified than you think. I'll put it that way. If you've had to tackle problems, you've probably solved a similar kind of problem, maybe in a different industry or in a different space. That you can show that you're capable of solving problems, that you can demonstrate that you could handle that. And so it very much is about, I have the capability even if I don't have the experience. And let me tell you what I mean by that. Here's what I would do in those situations, and really being able to promote yourself in that way. And it is uncomfortable for some people to do. It's uncomfortable for me to do. I do not like doing it. I will say that in my workspace, I'm way more comfortable doing it because I've been doing this for so long. And so I do have a lot more confidence in the workspace, right? There are plenty of other aspects of my life where I just will not be as confident because I don't feel that way. But being able to really just say, hey, I can do that, and let me show you what I can do. I mean, I'll share. I grew up in the bus side of the business. I've been doing bus operations pretty much my whole life until last fall, when I was privileged to be promoted to be chief operating officer. And so I'm now responsible for rail operations. I know just enough about rail operations to get in trouble. I'm now responsible for IT. I know a little bit less than that about IT, but what I've learned how to do is manage people, right? I've learned how to manage a department. And so I don't have to know how to do their job to manage them. And so you don't always have to know every single thing about what everybody does to be able to do a job. And so trying to figure out how you can, the question is, how do you really kind of put yourself out there to apply for a job that you're not sure you're qualified for? I think it's about imagining yourself in that job and then figuring out how to articulate what you would do and how you would do that job. That's going to give you that chance. And then I would also say, especially if you're in an organization that you really like, even if you know that you're not quite qualified for it, but it's one of the places you want to be, interview for it, because you want to put yourself out there. You want to raise your hand and say, boss, put me in every chance you get, because this might not be your opportunity, but it's an excellent experience just to go through the process and interview. And it also will give you a chance to say, yep, I know, I knew that was a long shot, but I really want to do more. And you might get the attention of somebody who otherwise was never going to sit down and talk one-on-one with you about what you're capable of doing. But because you got to the point where you were on the list for interviews, you got that chance. I know I personally, whenever I'm interviewing internal candidates, will always have a conversation with that person, even if they don't get the job, about how it went, what they could do better or different, help them understand, like, well, is this the kind of job you want? Let's talk about, I know you put in for it. Were you just looking for a promotion, or is this what you really want to do in life? And help them have that conversation. So especially if you're in an organization that you love, put in for it, even if you're not qualified, because it very well could be the thing that draws attention to you as somebody who wants to do more. And that might not be the right opportunity, but you never know when the right one's going to pop up.
I love that. And I also, I've been enjoying this chat as well. It's like, market yourself to your highest potential. And it's very true. And I think you both ladies have definitely shown us that. And I'm going to open this next question up to both you and Tangi. How do you balance taking on extra responsibilities that get you noticed for promotions while maintaining the basic responsibilities of your current jobs? And especially right now during COVID, I know you guys have been doing double duty on pretty much everything. So how do you balance it all, and still learn more and still do more, to get yourself noticed?
I'll jump in because Dottie is so busy. It's unbelievable. I don't know how she does it. But anyway, it's a struggle for me. I'm going to tell you. It's you just have to prioritize, and what's most important, and just whittle down your priorities, what you need to do. But it's like you said, it's because we've been in COVID, and it's been nonstop doing stuff. So and we're doing stuff different than we comfortable with doing. It's new processes. So I don't know, other than just keep hitting at it and whittle it down. I don't know. That's just me.
Yeah, and I think you have to be willing to work hard, and so the COVID being one of the easily the most difficult thing I've had to deal with in my career. I mean, when this first hit, I worked 7 days a week for 2 months, just to try and keep our heads above water. And so we've been able to get to a point where we can live with it, but it's still a mess. But I think just recognizing that sometimes you have to work real hard, and that's gonna mean sacrifices. And so it's also okay to look at the rest of your life and say, you know what, right now is not the time for me to sacrifice that extra hour in the day because my family needs me, or my kids need me, or my health needs me, or whatever else in your life you have to do. And so it's about knowing that now is a good time for me to do that, and being willing to put in the extra work. But I also think that once you are agreeing to do extra work and you're working on some extra things, being upfront when your plate is overloaded with your supervisor and saying, hey, I know I'm working on this extra stuff, but I think it's really important, and this other stuff is falling behind. Can you help me? Is there an opportunity that can I do this a little bit later? I've noticed that I know this work needs to get done, but is it okay if it gets done a week later? And those sorts of conversations can also help show that you're thinking about the big picture, and that you're not trying to not get your work done, but you are also trying to do this other thing. Hopefully you have a supervisor that's supportive of you learning new things and advancing. And so when you say, hey, I'm working on this thing, it's taking way more time than I thought it was going to be, but I think it's a good opportunity for me to get some more experience, so I don't want to give it up, but I'm having a hard time getting this done on time. Can we talk through that? I think that being able to have just frank conversations about priorities and, hey, I'm not getting the work done, unless you are literally like taking 2-hour lunches and not getting stuff done, or you are at a point where you're trying to do something that is really something that should take about 30 minutes and it's taking you 2 hours because you just don't know how to do it. Chances are 95% of the time when you feel overwhelmed, it's because there's too much on your plate. It's not because of some failing of yours. It's because there's too much on your plate. And so you need to talk to the filler of plates, which is usually our immediate supervisor, and say, hey, here's what all's on my plate, and it's just feeling a bit too full for me right now. And sometimes even just talking through it can help you realize, like, maybe it's a little more manageable than you thought, because now that you know that this one's more important than that one, that you can get it done, and you can kind of eat the elephant one bite at a time, as the saying goes. But I think that also just demonstrates that you're able to think at that level. And that I think, that is something that I still struggle to do. At least once a week, I stop myself and say, am I working on the thing that's the most important thing to be doing right now? Or am I working on the thing that I felt like doing, or that was the easiest to do? And so you're never going to stop having to prioritize what you do every single day and all in the order of your tasks. Tangi, it just makes me laugh. Your light keeps going off. I'm sorry. That's a quirk of our building. There's a motion sensor that's like in the stairwell, and if nobody walks up the stairs, the lights on that side of the building. It's bizarre. It just makes me laugh. Yeah, it's just about trying to find balance, and being okay with yourself to say, God, I wish I could do that extra thing right now, but now it's just not a good time for me. Sometimes you have to learn to say no. And that's a tough skill.
Yeah. And that actually answers Ms. Jackson's question. When you're spread too thin, how do you choose what's relevant? I think you said it perfectly. Talk to the spreader of the plates, who's actually the one giving you the tasks and learning to say no. How can you tell when a company or position allows for upward mobility if that's what you're looking for?
I would straight up ask going in. I would ask what sorts of opportunity, if I were successful in getting this position, what sorts of opportunities are there for advancement within your organization? In this role of X, Y, or Z, what are usually the next steps for people that take this role? Maybe even if the person you're talking to has been with the organization for a while, kind of probing a little to find out what their career path was, right? Is this somebody that came into the organization 10 years ago and they've been doing the same job for 10 years? And that's pretty much how it is there. Then that's not going to be if what you're looking for is upward mobility. So you really just kind of got to ask about it. And I think it's good to make sure that you find an organization that's a good fit for you. So if that's what you need, then you need to find an organization that is what they're offering, and acknowledging that sometimes you might need to take a job because we got to have a job. But if it's in an organization where that's not what's working for you, then figuring out, okay, what's my exit plan and how am I gonna do that? I also think that in this day and age, I recognize that my career, the fact not only that I've been in the same industry since I was 19 years old, but that I've been basically at the same organization since I was 19 years old is unheard of. Nobody does this anymore, right? Everybody moves around. It's just way more common for people to get a job and move around. So even if the organization you're interviewing with doesn't have upward mobility in that organization, try and understand whether or not that role, that job might be the stepping stone to the next job at a different organization. So you can have upward mobility in your career without necessarily there being upward mobility in a company. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and I like that because it's very true. The knowledge and experience that you gain, and you kind of mentioned it on your path as well, that it's invaluable because you're just gaining so many new skills. And even if, like you said, the company doesn't have the upward mobility as far as maybe pay raises or positions, if you have upward mobility in your skills, it's invaluable. But you're right, you have to have an organization that's, as you put it earlier, you shouldn't be in a toxic organization because that takes away from you and your own mental health. And in today's day and age, our health is our most important need right now. Make sure that we're healthy for our family and our friends who need us, as well as needing to have a job. Yes, but definitely it's a balance and trying to figure out both. We still have time for a couple more questions. If anybody would like to unmute and ask directly, feel free. I think I also want to thank Dottie and Tangi for taking the time out. They always, I mentioned before just how wonderful their energy is. Y'all see this, but they're also always open to volunteer when they're available and to share information and guidance, and I love it. Can you, both of you or either of you, share a time that you made a mistake and how did you handle it?
Let's see. I'm thinking now, Dottie. Let me think. It's been so few. I'm kidding.
That's actually a great question. It's one of my go-to if I don't have enough interview questions for a particular position and I'm just trying to kind of feel somebody out, is tell me about a time you made a mistake and how you handled it. I'll offer one. It was really kind of a technical mistake. It was when I was first learning the payroll process, and I was not a payroll processing expert. We had a huge mess up where we basically ran a payroll, and instead of paying everybody for 2 weeks, we paid them for 1 week, which is a problem. because people expect to get paid for both the weeks that they worked. And I realized that after the point of kind of a point of no return, every payroll cycle has a point of no return after which like fixing it is you're in crisis mode. And the first thing I did was curse, because I'm a cursor. But then the next thing I did was immediately tell folks we screwed up. I absolutely know we've screwed up. We've got to fix this. And then we've got to figure out how to make sure we never do it again. And so from the beginning, admitting your mistake is important. And also, even if you haven't figured out how you're going to never do it again, admitting that you need to figure that out is also important. And so those first 2 or 3 like moments of, I know that they're gonna be like, oh, you've got to fix this and you've got to figure it out, where you can kind of disarm them a little bit by saying, I screwed this up and we've got to fix it, and here's what we're going to do. And I know we've got to figure out how to make sure that doesn't happen again, but first let's fix the problem. And so, that was one of those moments that ended up costing the company some money, because we had to run an emergency payroll through our payroll servicing company so that everybody got 2 checks that Friday instead of just the one. But I think because I just sort of acknowledged it straight up, I didn't try and hide it. I didn't try and work around it. I just said, okay, wait a second. We dropped the ball here. How can we fix it? We were able to fix it. And so that would kind of be my advice just in general with a mistake, is own up to it very quickly. And if you know how to fix the mistake, immediately just say, here's a way we could fix it. But also make sure that you acknowledge that part of the fixing it problem is finding a way to prevent it in the future.
Yeah. I agree with Dottie. Definitely, I will always tell on myself before anyone tells on me, because it's I'm gonna get it out of there so someone can't say, Tangie did. But I've made so many mistakes. I could just tell an incident when I was a street supervisor. It was my birthday and I was working, and if you know transit, for an operator to be ahead of schedule is our cardinal sin for us, because you're leaving passengers when you run that ahead of a schedule. So this guy must have been about 6 minutes late. He was burning hot, and I said, and I got out my car. I was standing at the bus stop like I was a passenger. So I'm writing him up, and then I said, oops, because it's my birthday. I'm writing my birthday and the birth year, and I said, oh my gosh. And so when I realized that, I said, I'm going to give you a break today, because I'm feeling, very, very, very gracious, and to give you this break. And then I said, oh my gosh, I made such a mistake, and I left. But that's just one of the things, you order the wrong stuff. That's a mistake. I tell folks, hey, sorry, order wrong part. Or in facilities, you make mistakes about, like, during the snow. You're supposed to, when the snow went on the East Coast, you got to put salt down. If you don't do it in time, you got folks who may come to work and slip and fall. So there's numerous mistakes, but like they say, can I fix it? You can fix it. So it's okay. We learn from our mistakes so we don't repeat them again. So yeah, mistakes is, it's a learning, it's a learning opportunity.
You go. I like that. Learning opportunity.
Yes.
Miss Linda, you have a question. Go right ahead. Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry. I always have a question. People who know me know that. Is Capital Metro a second chance employer?
We are. We will. We have a process for an individualized assessment. So it will depend a lot on what conviction is on the record versus the position that you're applying for. So I'll use as an example, if you've got a DWI, we're not going to let you drive a bus. There's a certain amount of time is going to have to pass before we can let you drive a bus. But there are folks who are driving buses that have convictions that we look at it and we go, that's not related to driving a bus at all. And so, if we had, just an example that comes to mind is somebody who had problems with bad checks and that kind of, you know, financial stuff. Well, none of that is involved in your role in bus operations. And so we were able to say, nope, that doesn't apply. And so even though they had that conviction, we were able to employ folks. So we really do try and look individually case by case and say, you know, what role is this person going to do? And does this have anything to do with what they're going to do?
Is there a minimal amount of time that has to pass before they're considered?
There is, we have thresholds after which you don't even have to think about it, right? So like, and I'm not going to be able to recite them off the top of my head, but I know for like a DWI, if it's been 10 years, then we don't care, right? But there is never I mean, we will consider it if it's been 2 years. Chances are pretty slim if it's a DWI, it's been 2 years. Like we'll always consider it, but there's a point at which pretty much anything that's more than 10 years old, I would say if an employer is looking at it, then they're being finicky, right? And that's just like, come on, 10 years ago was a lifetime ago. I mean, stop for a minute and think about what you were doing 10 years ago. Like it's like, that is a lifetime ago. And so, but we have stuff that's even smaller than that. You know, we've got, you know, 3-5 year stuff depending on, you know, misdemeanors and that kind of stuff.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Do we have any other questions? Comments? Oh, hold on. Do you recommend including that on your cover letter?
I would say not in the cover letter. Your cover letter is your advertisement for yourself, right? You need to know how you're going to talk about any blemishes on your record, whether it's a conviction or a bad work history or whatever that blemish is. You need to know how you're going to address it up front. You need to have thought through it and know how you're going to present that and how you're going to explain that to folks. But your cover letter is really about, I'm awesome and here's why I'm awesome and all the things I can do. You always want to be honest and upfront and truthful and all of that. But you don't have to lead with your flaws, I guess. You know, you don't have to lead with the downside. Lead with all the upsides and be perfectly willing and able to talk about any downsides. But, you know, put your best foot forward. So that would be my advice.
I love that. Best foot forward. I think that's a great place to end. First of all, I want to thank all of you ladies for joining us. This has been fantastic. The questions have been amazing. I was a little worried I was going to have to come up with something at first, but y'all were fantastic. Had some wonderful questions. On behalf of everyone, especially Dress for Success, Dottie and Tangi, thank you for spending time with us today. It was just amazing. Like I said, I love listening to you both. Y'all are true ladies and mentors in my own life, even though I don't get to talk to you as much as I'd like. The way that you represent Capital Metro and everything you do and in your meetings and even here today just shows that women can do absolutely anything. Yes, I am in my mode. And we hope to see y'all. If you haven't scheduled your one-on-ones, I hope you will for our Dress for Success folks. And also, I hope you'll join us on Thursday. I'll be presenting information on Project Connect, and we are hoping to have a couple of our board members with us as well, so you get to see them. So thank y'all again so much. Y'all have a wonderful Tuesday and a great afternoon. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.